Hey guys, Peter here to do an album review. Today I'm here to tell you about the debut solo record from Charlotte Wessels, Tales from 6 Feet Under, out September 17th on Napalm Records. This album has 10 tracks, 43 minutes in length, and she's the former singer-songwriter of The Lane. Now, if you're expecting a record that has a clear path, a clear design, a clear structure from the first song all the way to the last, this record is not going to give you that. This album is a lot more chaotic. It has more of a style that you would associate with a greatest hits or a compilation, where each song has a different sound, a different approach, a different execution, a different atmosphere, really pulling you in different directions from track to track. You're never really sure if you're moving forwards or you're coming backwards. It's an album that has a lot of volatility, that has a lot of movement, but that movement is happening on the individual track basis, and the overall quality of the record is really defined by the quality of the individual songs. So it's really hard to find a red line on this album, and you're definitely not going to find it on the structure. I feel like there's a little bit of it within the overall soundscape and definitely within the vocals. But outside of those two elements, everything else is always moving, is always evolving, is always morphing, and it never really stays still in order to give you a sense of continuity from track to track. Once you get into the soundscape, the volatility that you see in the structure is really there because there's a lot of diversity in the sound that this record has. You have genres like alternative, pop, rock, electronic, a little bit of all of them coming into the table to really define the experience on the individual track basis, and that doesn't allow the album to have one single genre that you could categorize it as. It's just a diverse record. It's almost like you're getting 10 different faces of Charlotte Wessels throughout this record. The things that drive her as an artist are really imprinted in the definition, in the soundscape, in the way she constructed this album, and in the way she constructed these individual songs. The one red line through it that I mentioned before as far as sound is concerned comes from the quality of execution. This is an incredible sounding record. It doesn't matter how the songs are built, how the songs are put together, where they're taking you, what kind of journey that individual track has. The quality of the sound stays very consistent from the beginning all the way to the end. It tries to be as uniform as possible in order to bring some control to the overall chaos that exists within the record. Her voice, her vocals is the other little bit of red line that this album has, because it's magnificent performance after magnificent performance. I really love the layers that this record offers as far as vocals are concerned. I like that aspect of it. It adds life. It makes the record a little bit more rich. It makes the record a little bit more energized. It makes things a little bit bigger, and it makes it feel like it has more volume. It has a much larger footprint. So that was one of those elements that I saw repeated throughout the record that didn't become monotonous or didn't become predictable. You knew it was kind of coming, but you're enjoying it so much, and it's so well done. The layers on this album, as far as vocals are concerned, are really well executed, and because of that, it adds a different perspective to how these songs come across. You almost feel at times that there are 3-4 different singers in one single track, and that just brings life, that brings energy, that adds to the volatility that this record has. But the quality of her voice is really the constant, is really the red line, that with that quality of sound keeps this record as together as possible. Once again, trying to control that chaos as much as you can. I think it's very hard to do so, but those two elements keep things a little bit controlled, keep things a little bit balanced throughout, making the album find itself to be a little bit more cohesive than at first glance. Overall, I haven't felt about an album like this since I heard No Need to Argue from the Cranberries. I think that's the last time I heard an album that had the emotional impact, that had that touched me in a different way as this album did. I'm not saying those two records sound the same, because they don't. There's a lot of differences between them. But the first time that I heard No Need to Argue, I really was left scratching my head in terms of all the things that that album had to offer, all the nuances musically that that album had to offer, and how the vocals on that record really created the ebbs and flows and added a lot of richness to the overall sound. I saw a lot of those same traits on this record, even though the end result is very different. So I really love this album. I really love the approach that she took on putting this record together. The choices of songs were perfect. They all give me different sides of her personality, different sides of who she is as an artist, and I always enjoy when I get to see a little bit of what's behind the curtains. As far as favorite songs are concerned, I want to start off with Masterpiece, a very synth-driven track that also has some alternative elements into it. So it's really a morphing track, if you will, because there's a lot of genres coming into the table in order to create the sound that you're going to get out of this song. Very bouncy track all around. The vocals are really the ones creating the ebbs and flows, moving the track up and down, while musically staying a little bit more consistent. The chorus is very hooky. The simplicity that it has, it adds to how hooky it comes across. The vocal layers, once again, something you're going to find a lot throughout this album, but always done slightly different. And on this track, I felt like it brought some light, it brought some brightness, and made the song feel even more appealing, and made the song feel even more bouncy. Next, we have Cry Little Sister. This is a cover, part of the Lost Boys soundtrack. Listening to this song, you see a lot of the original DNA of the track still there. There's still a lot of the same darkness. There's still a lot of that same somberness that the original had on this song. But I felt like she went into places that the original never took me. So she showed me different shades of that darkness. She showed me how somber you can be, or how many different types of somberness you can get from a single song. This track kind of took me in a much different journey than what the original had done. So I really like what she did here. I think her voice is really what wins this track over. Musically, I love the track, but I don't think that the impact that this cover has is really noticeable outside of what the vocals are doing. She carries this track. She gives it the nuances. She gives it the movement. She gives it life. She makes it breathe. And I like everything that she does with her voice throughout this track, really taking me on a very dark and somber journey from beginning all the way to the end. Last but not least, FSU 2020. This is perhaps one, if not the heaviest song on this album. A lot of bite from the guitars and drums together. I just felt like it was more heavy, it was more driven, it was more punchy, it was more to the point, perhaps a little bit more direct. There was not as many curves, there was not as many twists and turns. This is a song that really takes you from point A to point B in the shortest path possible. I just love the industrial sound that it has, the heaviness, the guitars and drums together with some electronic elements really bring a little bit of an industrial sound into the forefront, making the song feel even more robust, making it feel even heavier. And then you get her vocals on top of it that softens the blow ever so slightly. So I really like that touch, because you felt like the song was going to go into a very heavy arena, and when she comes in with her voice, she really changes that dynamic. She changes the perception of the listener, softening the track ever so slightly in order to make the track feel a little bit more like part of the rest of the album, even though it's the heaviest track, at least in my opinion, on this record. This is it, Charlotte Wessels, Tales from 6 Feet Under. Let me know your thoughts on her songs, on her album, on her singing. Use the comment section below. I'll be reading those and getting back to you. Take care, guys.